Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I'm Devon and I am so excited to share with you today how to make the ultimate chicken pot pie. And we are going to be making a savory crust to go with our chicken pot pie. Are you ready? Let's get started. So we were going to be using chicken, and I have 3 chicken breasts that I have cut up. And I've cut those chicken breasts into strips, okay? We're also going to be using some carrots, butter, some shortening. The butter and shortening we're going to be using also for our savory crust, some potatoes, chicken stock, salt and pepper, some peas, as well as some carnation evaporated milk. So first I went on and I put my cut up chicken inside a pot, and I'm just adding some salt. I just want to kind of season the chicken breasts, and so those are going to go on and boil. Now while those are boiling, I'm going to cut up the carrots. Now the carrots, I'm cutting them up smaller than the size of a dime, or roughly about the size of a dime. So we want to go in and chop up our carrots. Once we have our carrots all nice and cut up, oh, and hey guys, if you're new here, go on and hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you see at the end of the video, go on and give us a thumbs up. Because on this channel, I am giving you all the secrets. We are cooking with flavor and we are baking with love. So come on and join the cooking family and subscribe. So once I have my carrots all chopped up, and it's going to be about 1/3 of a cup. You're going to have 1/3 of a cup of carrots, okay? And now I'm going to use a potato. Now for the ingredients for this ultimate chicken pot pie, I like to use carrots, potatoes, and peas. Now I know some people also like to add celery, and so if you like a little celery in your pot pie, go on and add your celery in. My recommendation though is that if you do, you want to go on and saute your celery and get it nice and soft prior to adding it in to your chicken pot pie, okay? And I'll show you at what point that you want to add celery if you're going to add that to your pot pie, as well as some people like to add mushroom, and I'll let you know when to add that into the recipe as well, okay? Now I'm adding potatoes, and I like what the potato really gives to the pot pie. Now with this recipe, it is very flexible, and that's why I love it so much, because if you don't want to add potatoes, you can go on and leave those out and just boost up on your veggies, okay? So I've gone on and I'm cutting up the potatoes. We're going to put those aside once we have them cut up, and we're going to put them on to boil, all right? Oh, and with our potatoes, we want 1.5 cups of cooked potatoes. And also, when I am boiling my potatoes, I put a little bit of salt in the water as well, because each layer of our pot pie is going to be full of flavor. It's going to be so good. Oh, and also, if you can use russet potatoes, or either you can use Yukon Gold potatoes. Either one of those works great in this recipe, okay? Oh, and also you want to be mindful not to overboil your potatoes. You want them just fork tender, alrighty? Now we're going to make our savory crust. Now this savory crust is great if you are making a chicken pot pie, a beef pot pie, a meat pot pie. It works wonderfully. And what we're doing is we're adding our flour, and we're using 1.5 cups of flour plus 2 tablespoons. Now in the description box below, I will have the list of all the ingredients for our pot pie as well as our savory crust, okay? Now we're also going to put in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and the salt, I'm just using regular table salt, and so we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of regular table salt. And once we've added our salt to our flour, I'm going to go on and give that a nice stir, and just so that way the salt is nice and distributed. Now to our flour and our salt, we will be using unsalted butter. And it's important to use unsalted butter because we've added that salt already in there to our pie crust, and because we are not adding any sugar to this crust like we would for a dessert pie crust, we want to make sure that we're using unsalted butter, okay? And so I'm using 1 stick of unsalted butter, and I'm also going to be using 2 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. And I like to go on and measure out the vegetable shortening, make sure I have the proper amount, and add the vegetable shortening. Now my butter has been chilled, and so that's great. You always want to have your butter nice and chilled, and so my butter is chilled. And guys, let me tell you why we will be using both butter and shortening in our pie crust. The reason being is butter will give us the flavor. It will give us that delicious flavor that we expect from a very tasty pie crust. And the shortening gives us the flakiness. All right. And so butter is the flavor, the shortening gives us the flakiness, and that's why using the combination of both will give you excellent pie crust. And so in here, I've gone on and I've added the butter and I've added the shortening. And you see what I'm doing with my fingers there, guys? You see what I'm doing? You see how I'm mushing it up? I want to really hydrate. I want to hydrate that flour with the butter and with the shortening. And so I'm going to get in there into my bowl, and I want to really nice and hydrate it. Now next, what we're going to do is we're going to use some ice water. Now in my bowl, I have my tap water, but I've added ice cubes to it, guys. And so we have nice cold water. Now what we're going to be using is we're going to use 6 to 8 tablespoons. You do not want to put too much water, all right? You just want it till it comes together. You want your crust to come together, and you want your dough to form a ball. And as you push down on it, it's going to be a little bit tacky, like a little bit sticky, like a tacky feeling. So that way when you press down on it, it holds together. You see how I'm rotating it and I'm pushing down and I rotate it, and you see how I'm forming a ball just by pushing and rotating it, where it's nice and it's hydrated. The flour is hydrated, the butter and the shortening has mixed in well, and just like that. You see how it formed? Just like that. And so I'm going to press it down and get it flat. I'm not going to get it very flat, but I just want to kind of press it down nice, kind of form it. And then we're going to go on and we're going to wrap it in some clear wrap. We'll wrap it in some clear wrap. And I like to put my dough in the refrigerator and let it chill. And it's going to chill for, about 20 minutes or so. It's going to chill while I make that filling, while I bring together that filling for our chicken pot pie. And also our potatoes and our chicken should be done boiling and totally done. And what I like to do is, after I go on and I put the pie crust in the fridge and I let that chill, I check on the chicken and the potatoes. I drain them and I let them cool, because you do not want to put your potatoes into the mixture that we will be making for our pot pie while they're still warm, because they'll have a tendency to break up, and we don't want that, okay? But what I'm doing now with the chicken, it's nice and cool. I'm just going in there and I'm just making sure I want nice small pieces, not too big, not too small, just nice bite-sized pieces. So I go in there with my chicken breast and I just kind of pull it apart. And now remember, we are using 3 pounds of chicken breast. Now you can also use a chicken thigh if you like, or if you like a mixture of chicken breast and chicken thigh, you can do that as well. Okay. And so once we have that all situated and ready, I'm going to start on my base for the pot pie. We're using butter, and we're also going to be using some flour, and we'll be using equal parts of butter and flour. I am using a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour to a 1/2 cup of butter. And the butter I'm using is unsalted butter, because we will be adding salt and pepper to this roux, this base that we're making for our pot pie. Now, once I have that and it's nice and start to dissolve, and that's what you want to do. You see what I'm doing, guys? I dissolved the flour so it's totally dissolved. There's no chunks and no lumps in there. And you want to just keep blending. Now, the difference between making this base for the pot pie and making a traditional gravy is that we're not going to cook it that long. We're not going to take it that far. And so I only cooked it to about a cream consistency, but just shy of being tan. Now this here, I'm adding in my chicken stock, And you can use chicken stock or chicken broth. And I like to add it in, if you saw that, I added it in 2 cups at a time. And we're using a total of 4 cups. So I put in 2 cups and I'm blending it around, making sure that I'm getting any little bits that happen to be any flour that did not dissolve, anything that I missed. I want to go around the corners, the edges, and the sides. And then I added the other 2 cups. So I want to do it at 2 cups at a time when you're adding it to your roux that you're making for your pot pie base. I'm going all around the side. And as this continues to cook and come together, it will thicken up. And it will thicken up very nicely. And it will turn into this wonderful, wonderful sauce that will be that gravy sauce that will be right there with our chicken pot pie. And so I want this to come to a boil because when we first were cooking it, when it was just the flour and the butter, we're bringing it up to that cream color, like I said. We're cooking out that raw flour taste. And then we added in that chicken stock. And you see how it went on and it thickened up. Now, once it's nice and thick like that and it's boiled, I go on and I add in a half a cup of evaporated milk. Now, guys, let me tell you, I have tried heavy cream. I have tried half and half. Evaporated milk is the way to go. The silkiness, the smoothness that it creates in this base for the chicken pot pie is incredible. It is so delicious. It is exactly the taste and texture and feel that you want in your homemade from scratch chicken pot pie. And that's why I like to call this the ultimate chicken pot pie. Now to it, I have added 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. And I'm going to go on and I'm going to mix that around really good. And this is to taste. So we're tasting to see where we're at with our seasoning. But do you see that? Do you see how nice and silky that base is? It tastes so good. I'm going to add just a little bit more salt, guys. I think it needs just a little bit more salt. Now, once I add that little extra seasoning in, I'm going to go on and mix it around. And this is it. Our base is ready. Now it's time for us to go on and add in our other ingredients and build our pot pie filling. So I've added in our carrots, and that's 1/3 cup of carrots. And those are cooked carrots. I was cooking the carrots, and so I boiled them so I got them nice and soft. And again, that's 1/3 cup of cooked carrots. I'm adding in 1/3 cup of peas, and these are frozen peas, and you can just add them just like that. Go on and add them right into your pot, no problem. And then we're going to go on and add in our potatoes. And so I like to mix it around very gently. Our potatoes are cooked and they are fork tender, but we don't want to break them up. So we want to be gentle, and I want to mix it around. But do you see how this is coming together? And now I've added in my chicken. And I've just cut the chicken. I really didn't shred it so much. I just more so had it in like just pulled pieces. And I'm just mixing it around, very gently folding it all together. But do you see that? Do you see this filling? Layers of flavor. We seasoned the potatoes. We seasoned the chicken. And now what we're going to do is I'm taking my 9x13 casserole dish, and I've got softened butter. I'm using 1 tablespoon of softened butter, and I'm going all around the sides and the edges and the corner of my casserole dish. Now, while I'm doing this, I have my oven, and it is preheating to 425 degrees. Okay, and so we go on and we add in the filling straight from our pot, just like that. Oh, guys, and I didn't want to forget to mention, if you wanted to add celery to your pot pie, or mushrooms, if you'd like, to your pot pie, when I was adding in the carrots and the peas and the chicken and the potatoes, that's the time in which you would add your celery, or you'd add mushrooms if you'd like. But just be mindful that you do want to make sure that you have sauteed your celery, that it is nice and soft, okay? And then also the same thing, if you're adding in mushroom, that you have already pre-sauteed your mushroom before you add them into your filling if you like. So now that we have our filling, I've evened it out into my dish. I'm going to go on and take my pie crust. I've taken it out of the refrigerator, and we're just going to put just a little bit of flour on our mat. And this right here, I use this mat. This is a silicone mat. And I actually use this mat when I'm baking cookies, but I like it to roll out, and I'm going to show you why. And so we're going to go on and roll out our crust. When we roll out our crust, we're going to be doing it in a rectangle. That way it will be able to cover our casserole dish from end to end. I'm putting gentle pressure on my rolling pin, and I want to roll this out to about 1/8 of an inch. And 1/8 of an inch, kind of think about the thickness of maybe a quarter, maybe a little bit thicker than the thickness of a quarter. Okay, and so once I have it all rolled out, then I'm going to go on and cover my casserole dish with our pie crust. And this is why I love using this method. When I discovered using this, I said, this is it. It is so easy to transfer your pie crust right on top of your dish. Now, if you do not have a silicone mat like this, you can use wax paper or even parchment paper. Either one of those will work just fine. And now once I have it on there, I'm just going to go around the edge. You see what I'm doing there with my fingers, with my hand? I'm just kind of going around the edge a little bit. I'm taking off any excess dough that's coming over the sides, but don't worry, because we're going to still use that excess dough. But I'm just kind of trimming it with my hands. And you know what? And I've learned to do this by watching my mom, watching my aunties in the kitchen when they were cooking, when they were baking, when they were making sauces, stews, and them telling me and teaching me different tricks and techniques from just being in the kitchen and watching them and seeing what they do. Right here, just pushing down that crust all around the edge. That is what my mom did all the time when she was making her peach cobblers. So I learned to do that from watching my mom. And so I just go around the edge like that with that extra dough that I had kind of trimmed off the sides. And once we have it all down like that, oh, that looks so nice. Now I take my egg wash, and all this is, guys, it is 1 egg that I have beaten up, and you want to really like whisk it up and get it nice and frothy, okay? And so now I just take my little brush and brush all over the top and the sides, and this is going to give our pie crust, this delicious savory pie crust, it's going to give it a nice golden sheen. And then I'm going to go on and use my kitchen shears and create 3 vent holes ready for the oven. And now this is it, guys. This is our delicious ultimate chicken pot pie from scratch. It is baked in the oven for 30 minutes at 425 degrees. Look at that crust. Do you see that crust that we made from scratch? Look how flaky. Look how flaky and tender this crust is. Guys, I hope you give this recipe a try. And remember, it is always good when Devon is cooking for the family. Now, if you haven't yet, please be sure to go on and hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.